Biscuits! All right, when I started down the journey of becoming the Einkorn Man, because that just seemed to be a fun thing to do. And by the way, we sing the Einkorn Man to the tune of the Candyman can. And what we say is the Einkorn Man can because he mixes it with love and makes the world feel good because his bread is amazing. So I started messing with the Einkorn recipes, and right away, several friends, including my wife, said, honey, biscuits are where it's at. Biscuits are easy, biscuits are fun. And immediately my thoughts went back to the fact that my mom made biscuits all the time growing up. She'd make fresh biscuits in the morning, and we'd have them with bacon and eggs if we weren't making waffles or pancakes because they were quick and easy. And then I started looking on YouTube, and I was, oh my gosh, everybody loves a biscuit. So I pulled out my mom's recipe, and guess what? Her biscuits were made with margarine. No, they weren't even made with margarine. They were made with Crisco. My mom used white flour and Crisco. In fact, I'm going through all of her old cooking recipes that I loved growing up, and they were all made with Crisco. So I started looking at all the different Einkorn recipes and looking at a lot of recipes online. And I think about the third time, I just got lucky. We just found the right combination. So this is my biscuit recipe. They come out amazing. They come out fluffy. They come out flaky. And they're made with Einkorn flour, so they are double awesome because you can eat them and not worry about the gluten for most of you. Side note, if you have celiac, the Einkorn still doesn't work for you, okay? It doesn't get past that one. So what we started, this is my Einkorn spatula. It's a special spatula designed for stirring Einkorn flour because when it gets real sticky, then when it's time to clean up, this cleans really nicely. All right, so we have 2.5 cups of Einkorn flour. To that, this is the key. When you start talking and doing stuff, suddenly you get your measurements wrong. So we're going to add 1 tablespoon of baking powder. And I'll put the recipe on here someplace where you guys can see it. So 1 tablespoon of baking powder. We're going to add, a quarter teaspoon of baking soda. I have messed this up a bunch, so going really slow for this part. Just a smidgen, a skosh, quarter teaspoon of baking soda. And a half a teaspoon of sea salt. So we use the Himalayan sea salt, and I went to the store and bought the fine. It's because it just seems to work better than the coarse ground. So I got the fine sea salt and a half a teaspoon of sea salt. And then to give them just a little bit of kick, some people put in sugar. We use monk fruit sweetener, M-O-N-K, monk fruit. And so we're going to add 2 tablespoons of monk fruit. You wouldn't have to do that, but it just makes it 2 plus a little bit. It just gives them a little bit of flavor. So we're just going to take this and mix it all in very, very nicely. So we have our flour, salt, baking powder. Now you'll find this is the basics for most biscuit recipes. The challenge is making them flaky and beautiful as opposed to just drop. So after my mom got tired of making biscuits with Crisco, and we were doing a lot of winter trips and camping, she started making biscuits with Bisquick. So my high school years, Bisquick, and even in college, Bisquick was my go-to for biscuits. These are better. They take a little bit of work. Okay, so now we have to take butter. So we're going to take a full cube of butter. And if you all know Cheryl and me, you know that we like the Kerrygold butter. It just tastes the best. And so we've got a full cube. And what I do is I roll it in the flour because this has been in the freezer getting extremely hard. Some people use the little dough cutters to cut this in. What I found was if I take the grater, and I'm just going to grate this up, and it's really hard right now. So I'm just going to grate this in here. And the flour lets me hold it without it sticking to my hands. Then I just take the dough, okay, flour, and I'm just going to coat that butter. And this saves all of the cutting in process, and it just, I think, gives us a flakier biscuit as we get going. Now, baking is a flour process, so you will get floury. And we add a little more butter to this. And the reason I break it up into little sections is so that all the butter doesn't end up in one space. But you see, we got these nice curly buttery things, and we just want to get all of that butter coated in flour because it's the cold, hard butter. When it starts getting funky, we just dip it in flour again. It's the cold, hard butter that's going to make our biscuits really flaky. And people, you know, when I made Bisquick biscuits, they weren't flaky. They were just biscuits. And the main purpose, I think, was to put butter. Back then it wasn't butter, it was margarine. It was to put butter and jam on them. All right, so you see how easy this is with your fingers and your hands? And we just keep putting this whole thing in there. Ow. Be careful not to take your knuckles off. That was almost deadly that time. Again, I'm going to not edit this out of the video because I want you guys to see what the journey looks like, what the process is like. We got one piece of butter there. It's kind of big. It'll work its way in later. Okay, and we got just a little bit more butter left. And that one came out. So we'll just break it up, put it in there, and we'll take this other butter here. And trust me, the butter is what makes these amazing. And because the butter's hard, it's warming up on my hands. It's becoming a little bit tough to get the last part in. But you know what? From a therapy standpoint, from a healing standpoint, having our hands in the flour, being in the kitchen, baking, there was a time when we were all too busy to be doing this. We had so much going on. We had everything coming and going. And now that we're spending time at home, this has just become a slow down life. Turn off the television, maybe turn on some music. I've even taken to enjoying cleaning up the dishes when I'm done because it's all part of the therapy of this process. Okay, so this is what we end up with. Our flour, our baking soda, our salt, our baking powder. And as you can see, we have just this luscious, it's actually cold now. The flour has become cold because the butter is cold. We got flour everywhere. And then we're going to use, I decided to use buttermilk. Cheryl thought that would be better for us. You can use cream, cut the cream in half. So whipping cream, we like this because it's organic and it's really good quality. You can use regular milk. You could probably use water, but I would go with either regular milk, cream, mix it half and half, or the buttermilk. We really like as a family. So we're adding, always check to make sure the right amount. 3/4 cup of buttermilk to this. So the buttermilk just gives it a beautiful flavor. And now we just have to stir this. So as we stir this, what you're going to notice, what's different about the Einkorn flour, Einkorn does not absorb moisture quickly. So as you're blending it together, it doesn't look like it's actually going to happen. So we just want to keep stirring. And it's starting to come together, but you can see how we have this nice kind of sticky process here. And what I do at this point is I take my dough scraper. Dough scraper is great. And I just start working this around. All right, how's that working there, camera crew? We're doing okay? And you can see that it's starting to integrate itself and make a sticky dough. All right, now at some point this becomes hard. And so what you do is you take the flour bucket, you flour your hands, and you just start working this in. Can you get that, Anna? So we just are going to work this in. Now this is the part that you want to watch. This is the part that I had to figure out how to do because I had no idea what the texture of this was supposed to be, what it was supposed to feel like, what we were supposed to do. And you can see that as we go, the Einkorn flour is beginning to absorb the buttermilk. It is a sticky process, and we just work around the edges here. And now that it's about together, this is where the magic happens. All right, so you put it out on, ooh, don't do that, Forrest. Knocking stuff over because I'm trying to be on cue with the camera. We're going to add a little bit of flour to our flour mat here, our cooking mat. And we just scrape this out. We get everything out on the mat. And we start to push it together, okay? So this just has to begin coming together. And we use my scraper. It's going to bring the pieces together. All right. And, all right, so we've taken our dough and it's coming together and we want to keep it cold. I like these wood straight dowels because they're just really easy to work with. You can just add a little bit of flour to them and it just helps the process. So now here's the thing that I discovered from another biscuit maker person. We're going to take this and we're going to fold it once and twice into thirds, all right? And now we're going to roll that out. So we have to do this 5 times. Again, you got to keep track of the 5. As soon as your dough gets sticky, just put a little flour on it. And what I do to keep track of how many times I've done it, I just put a little line of flour here. And every time I do one, I just go like that. That's 1. All right, so now I'm going to take my thirdsies. I'm going to roll. And what this begins to do is it begins to create layers of flakiness. And we grab it with our scraper. and we blend it in. What's going to happen is every time you do this, it's going to start becoming a little bit more congruent with itself. All right, and we just roll. And by the way, if you taste the dough, this is my favorite. A lot of people go, why do you eat the dough? The biscuit dough is my favorite tasting dough. I think it's the buttermilk and the monk fruit. All right, so that's 2 times we've done it now. So we just mark 2. And now we fold again. We fold in thirds, and we fold in thirds. And everything's getting a little sticky, so we just add a little more flour to our hands. All right, and we roll with the roller. We have one of those really big, nice marble rollers, but it's just too hard and too heavy to use in the kitchen. I think marble rollers are better for dealing with home invasion than for rolling bread out. This roller is great. Plus, it makes me feel like a more authentic baker. Okay, there we go. So this is going to be 3. And I need to remember to put some flour on our mat this time. So we'll just flour up the mat. And that's 3, right, Anna? Yep, 3. Okay. And it's still cold. We're moving quickly because we want to keep it cold. And what's going to happen when we get done is we are going to I'm going to put this in the freezer until it gets really firm. For some reason, which I don't totally understand, cold is good and it makes a better biscuit. So in my case, I just need to know that cold makes a better biscuit. And there comes the thirds. Now you notice how we're starting to get a really nice, this is really starting to come together. So this is our 4th time. And I don't know why 5, but that's what the baking expert I watched said to do. She was making hers with white flour. So again, we're making it einkorn flour. You can see how nice this is starting to look. And we're going to fold it one more time. We're just creating layers of goodness with all that flaky butter that we grated into this. I'm just going to turn that over. And that was our 4th time. We'll do it one more. And we're going pretty quickly at this point because we don't want it to go soft on us. We don't want the butter to get warmed up. But take a look, Anna. Can you bring the camera in here? How nice our biscuit dough is becoming. And that'll be our last time. 1 and thirdsies again. Now, after we do it this time, it's going to go onto a cookie sheet. And I'll tell you what, guys, if you get good, this is a little bit more work than the biscuits my mom made. My mom just took the Crisco, the flour, the milk, she cut it together, she rolled them out, and she plopped them in the oven. So now what I want to do is I want to get this to the thickness I want for my biscuits. So depending on how thick you want your biscuits is what you're going to make this to be. We can wash away our counter. And I have just a small baking sheet. This is what they're going to cook on. This makes about a dozen beautiful biscuits. So it's got a little Silpat Teflon mat on it. You can use parchment paper, but we want to get this about how we want it, which is right about here. And that's going to be about a 1/2 inch biscuit. All right, and they're going to rise a little bit, but not too much. And now I'm just going to loosen this up. It goes right on there. And the reason I wanted it the height is because when we come out of the freezer, then we're just going to be able to cut out our biscuits. It's going to be right how we want them. All right, so this is going to go into either the refrigerator or the freezer. I'll try to make that nice and square so we can cut nice biscuits out of it. You can cut squares or circles or hearts, whatever you want. So this will go in and get hard, then we'll cut our biscuits and cook them. I'll be back with you in about 30 minutes.
Awesome.
Okay, a little goof up on the videos. I just, when I took them out of the freezer and I came over and cut them to get them ready to go, forgot to turn the mic back on. So we're going to do it without the props, but that'll be just as good. So while the biscuits were cooling, getting nice and firm, that's when I took time to clean up the kitchen. Now, there was a time in my life when I cook, you do the dishes. Cleaning up the kitchen was always a problem. There was dishes in the morning, there's always dishes. And here's the thing, guys. During this season, what I've been working at doing is how do I bring ritual? How do I bring a process? How do I just calm myself down in a world that's kind of gone crazy, where there's overwhelm and anxiety? And so what I found is that along with the baking, the cleaning up the kitchen, putting stuff away, having some tools I enjoy to work with and play with, having, for me, having a real cookbook. This is my cookbook, the Einkorn cookbook by Carla Bartolucci. She's the one who brought Einkorn to the marketplace. Her story is amazing. So she's kind of my favorite cookbook writer right now. But yeah, you can pull these recipes off the internet. But for me, having a cookbook, being able to put my notes in it, having it set up here on the counter, it adds to the process of making this a joyful experience that just takes me away from all of the overwhelm of the world. We don't have the TV playing in the background. We don't have the news going. I just immerse myself in this. Cleaning up is part of the process. So this little brush right here is a perfect brush for, because your Einkorn is really sticky. So this one has a little soap dispenser in it. It's a simple tool, but it makes the job easier. And I love these little scour daddies. They're a relative of the Scrub Daddy, but they're just firm enough to get in and get the Einkorn off your hands when you're doing that. So cleaning up, having even the right cleanup tools makes a difference. When I cut them out, I use a 2-inch biscuit cutter. All right, so this is just a basic 2-inch biscuit cutter. As you can see, they still grew and expanded quite a bit. I'll show you the finished biscuits here in just a minute. So this worked well, and out of that whole recipe I got, I think we got about 15 biscuits this time. So anyway, that's what you do when you just cut them out and then put them back on that same tray, and they go in the oven. Mine I cook in a Breville Smart Air oven. It was one of the best things we bought. I bought it for my wife for Mother's Day or Valentine's Day a year or two ago, and it's been wonderful. Now, these cook for me, 13 to 14 minutes at 400 degrees. Every oven's going to be a little bit different, so you're going to need to play with temperature and time. All right, like in her cookbook, she cooks hers at 425. So you got to figure out what works for you. You've got to do a little testing, experimenting, take them out, play with them. But the Breville has been really easy. It doesn't heat up the whole kitchen. It heats up quickly. It's ready to go, and it's perfect for biscuits. So when we come back, I'll show you the biscuits coming out of the oven. We're going to call it the Biscuit Reveal. All right, so we just took them out of the oven a few minutes ago. Camera crew was down the hall, so you didn't get to see them coming out. Now, this time they came out a little different. They came out a little leany. All right, maybe I folded them too many times. Maybe I was shooting the video and missed something. Every time I make them, they're a little bit different. That's part of what I call play, notice, and discovering. What makes baking for me so much fun right now is that I'm learning. And I had a couple people that I was helping learn how to do this, and they're like, Forrest, it didn't work. It's awful. I'm a failure. And I said, how many times have you done this? And they said, once. Well, when I started with Carla's book, she said, one of her videos, she said, it took me 6 months to actually get good at this. And that is what it takes. It takes time to get good. But in the meanwhile, I have made an amazing biscuit. Okay, I just checked it before I came on camera. So this is taking my leany biscuit and cutting it in half. And you can see that this is flaky, steamy, and amazing. And here's the deal. They may be a little bit leany, but the experience is crazy good. They do this on the TV shows all the time. I don't know how they do it, because then it gets caught in your mouth and you can't talk. But anyway, they do it on the cooking shows. So trust me, they are really, really good. And unlike the white biscuits, the white flour biscuits where you just keep eating and eating, one of these is actually very satisfying. The Einkorn is very filling. It's very satisfying. It doesn't create cravings. We've noticed it hasn't given us that bloaty, gassy feeling that you get from eating white flour biscuits. And they've just got this beautiful golden look to them. So I'll keep playing with it. So eventually I get the perfect shape. Now, when you can make a good biscuit, whether you're the wife or the husband or the daughter, the rest of the family's going to go, Dad, you're amazing. Thanks for making biscuits. And you know what, truly? I really believe this. A good biscuit makes this world a little bit better because, well, if you're the Einkorn man, you make it with love, you make the world a little bit better, and it's just good to be you when you make the world a little bit better. Forrest, out.